Welcome and thank you so much for clicking on my video. Today we're asking ourselves, man, should I sell my stocks? And that's what we're going to go over today in some daily charts, doing some technical analysis on the daily side of things for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, Nvidia, AMD, and we're actually maybe going to peek at Meta as well. Look at some of these daily charts, whichever ones I find important, we're going to go over today, and maybe we can help you guys decide with some technical analysis. Now, as we get into the SPY, first off, we're just going to say this is a indecision bar, but we're testing that 20 at this moment. Now, if I do show you this chart at this zoomed in, we're going to do something interesting here and say, should I get out of this position? Well, if you look at the chart this close up, you'd say, hey, we can get a pullback and go higher, and that very well still could happen. But as I zoom out, we're talking about, is this a good place to possibly wait for a bigger correction or maybe even some kind of crash that is coming down the line? And as I zoom out, you're going to see how high we have really come since we based out back in 2022. Okay, October 2022, sitting at 350 for the SPY. Now we're sitting all the way up towards 520. So is this kind of helping you out in the fact that look how big this move is? And a lot of the time when you get a big move like this one, you get some kind of correction to go higher. Now we've seen an even bigger move and we might need at least some kind of correction to head higher. And we very well could head higher, but I just wanted to point out on the SPY, all of these divergence up here, whenever we see these show up in the past around 2020, and things like around 2020, around 2021, we actually saw some of these signals showing up pretty early on, and it gave us a hint at where the top was. And if you pull up the weekly and monthly charts, you're going to see how there could be an overall crash. So we're going to show you one crash indication, which would be this guy right here. This is where you know that lower prices are definitely coming. And when I say lower price, I mean extremely lower prices are most likely coming. Okay, if this guy right here, this MACD, is able to curl over and get a red impression on that histogram, we're possibly going into negative territory. So there's really two check marks in order for us to go into much lower prices in the SPY. That would be if this monthly wants to curl over and then cross down into negative territory. This would require someone to save us, the Fed to come out and save us again, and I don't think they have the ability to at this point. So if this thing crosses over on the MACD and goes negative, you're most likely heading into one of the worst recessions or possibly a depression. But those things can take a lot of time to happen, right? They take a lot of time to actually prove those things. It can take months and months for that to actually prove. We can see some wonkier price action. So we do still want to pay attention to this daily MACD. It's still in positive territory for the SPY. So if we do get some kind of roll down, we still can go up again. So if we roll down all the way and down to this point, which we gave you those monthly expected moves for the SPY, 493.94, and to the upside, we have 522.22. Okay, so these will help you out as we are halfway through the month here. So if we do get excited early on next week, maybe we see some kind of plunge or something like that, you can use these. But also, if we like to sit at it at the end of the month, then you can get some kind of bounce and actually head lower, spreading out the next month's monthly range. So that is something to pay attention to. You can get these monthly ranges for each individual stock that we do cover on this channel down in the description. But these overall divergences say we could go to lower levels. It doesn't mean you can't curl up again in positive territory. Don't want you getting overly bearish. We really still want to trade this like water because I believe we are going to see a bunch of bumps along the road before we actually see lower prices. I do think it will take some time for that to play out. In the Qs, you're going to see exactly the same signals. We can pay attention to those monthly expected moves. Those are up there on your screen, those yellow lines. These last weekly expected moves didn't really get touched last week, which is very, very interesting because they were pretty wide. I thought we were going to see some craziness, but you're noticing we're getting a sell signal as of right now, and we're seeing that MACD start to dip a little bit lower. These divergences on the Qs have really come a little bit closer to that negative territory, but it doesn't mean that we can't see some kind of reaction up to get another point. This can still get bullish as long as it curls up into positive territory. So if we're able to hold at higher levels, say even this monthly expected move, and then we see that cross up, we could be getting one more push higher. So you really want to wait for this to fully get into negative territory, and this might be a good chance to say, hey, maybe I want to scale into a position and get out of my investments, because it really looks like with these divergences, the momentum is telling you there is at least some kind of correction coming. How this would break down, we've talked about this before, but we could come down into that monthly expected move by the end of March or before March is over and get some kind of bounce to remain within these yellow lines. We remain in there 68% of the time. Okay, so this is what the options market has priced in for the whole month of March here, and we're still within that range as of right now. Now, if we are going to see some kind of sudden crash, you will get hints of that. We will start to see us break below this pretty quickly and use it as resistance to then head lower. And then we'll have to pay attention to those weeklies and those monthlies and see what is happening with those if they're curling over, because we could be seeing something more dramatic. But you guys know that I think this will be a stair stepper down. When you see a big bullish move like this, it is very hard to convince the psyche of people that this is still not going to go higher. So you're going to see people try to catch this on the way down plenty of times. Apple actually might be showing us a little example of one of those times. Apple falling off a cliff, but seeing that bounce. Falling off a cliff, seeing a big bounce, falling off, seeing a smaller one, falling off, getting a bounce. We will see bumps in the road, and we could actually be seeing an upward move in Apple if it forms some stuff here. So if we actually do see a little bit of strength and then see that weakness come in later, we could see some kind of small daily divergence. We're still going to pay attention to any kind of bounces that could happen in this market, because people have been so bullish for so long that it's going to be very hard for the whole market to really be able to say, I'm bearish now, I'm going to sell, this is going down, it's crashing. There are people who will be convinced that this thing is going to go higher. It very well could in the short time frame, but if we start to see that stair stepper down, you're going to see these bumps in the road where people really try to buy the dip, catch the bottom. And I believe that's overall what is happening with Apple at this point. Even if Apple gets a good reaction from here, which it very well could, it could come back up into this zone, reconnect with this 50, and then see another drop, and then we get a divergence for some kind of bigger bounce later on. But as we are at lower levels, we're in negative territory. Sure, this daily MACD can curl up for a little bit, but wait for that, because it's pretty far away from that center line. So if that just curls back down, you have yourself a point where you're going to go big move down, little move up, another big move down, and then we could see that rug actually be pulled in other stocks like Nvidia and AMD at that point. Now, Tesla is one of those ones we're talking about. That doesn't mean you can't find bounces, okay? So Tesla, we see this dramatic move down, and what happens here? Well, people try to buy this dip. People find the price good. We marked off that 180.92 for you, and now we're starting to drop back down. This is what I'm saying with Apple. Apple can do the same exact thing that Tesla did here and then form some kind of divergence down here, which you actually have on the MACD and RSI at the same time. So we could actually see momentum dying out here. And if Tesla is able to catch a bid, able to get some good news, we actually could see a stronger bounce. Now, will that lead to getting into positive territory and really curling up and getting a strong move? That's what we'll have to pay attention to. I think it's going to see some kind of strong move, maybe down here around that 154 if we can get there, and then we see that almost get into positive territory and curl back down. I really do think that what we have coming down the pipeline is going to be pretty bad, and you even have the Fed saying themselves that some banks will fail. Now, if you do want to learn about these stuff, divergences, MACDs, RSIs, and how to get them on your charts, and then at the end of it, getting a bear market strategy, I have a course down below that you can take. It is 50% off. You can get it done by this weekend and utilize that throughout your next week. And then on the Patreon, we also do give those weekly ranges, which we talk about in the course as well. You learn what the ranges actually are and why they are so important and why we can formulate some trades around them. It's very, very useful, and it will take you just the weekend to finish it, and then you can come into next week as a more informed trader, someone with more tools in order to be successful in this market. A bear market is where you need some skill. So I highly encourage you to take the course because it is 50% off, and you need the skill in a bear market. And the bull market is easy because all you do is keep buying when this thing crosses, right? So when this crosses up and then into positive territory, it crosses up, you're above the 200, easy play. Bull markets can be very, very easy when you're above the 200. Now, when you start dropping below the 200, that's where the real skill traders come out. So I highly encourage you to take that course this weekend. And I appreciate everyone who already has. Now, one stock that you guys know that I am trading is Amazon. This thing has been skyrocketing for some time, coming up into these previous highs. Okay, it's coming up into these previous highs. It can make another move higher. I'm not, discarding that by any means. And I really think it actually might going into next week with GTC for Nvidia. We could see some positivity in the overall market. So this could be some kind of fake out at this point. But you're coming and retesting the 20 at this point, and you're rejecting that crossing again on the MACD. We keep rejecting this crossing when we get up in this area, right? We see that kind of curling down, which is getting us really close to negative territory. So if we do see some kind of move up and that's actually able to cross, we can see a strong move. But if that fails, back down, we could see some kind of divergence up here for some kind of hint that says Amazon is really dying out to the upside. Something bad could be down the pipeline, and that actually might be the Fed on Wednesday. So come back for our live show. We're going to be live while Fed Jerome Powell talks, while that Fed rate decision comes out. And then throughout the week, we're live every single morning. So do come join us so you can utilize a lot of these weekly, daily, and monthly ranges, and we can talk about them in real time. I did just want to show you guys at least one of these stocks. I can tell you that this signal is proven on almost every stock that we cover on this channel. This divergence, if the stock is going up like this, I think the only one is Nvidia, because that thing is parabolic. But even AMD, I believe, has this divergence on the monthly scale. Okay, so you have that divergence on the RSI and MACD at the same time. So this is your crash indication. If this is able to roll over on Amazon, look at that. You would be so close to negative territory. You could be in negative territory in the next 3 months. So you have to be very cautious in this market, as all it would take is a couple months to turn around and cross this MACD, come down into this level. People catch some kind of bounce thinking, oh, this is the pullback, this is the overall correction in order to go higher at this point, and then we see that ripped away. So this actually could be ripped away to lower levels, and you could be getting some kind of double top up here with Amazon, and that is something to pay attention to. Let's see where that actually would land us. Okay, let's see if this actually played out as a double top. Where would Amazon head to? And this is the kind of worrisome side. So the should you sell question could mean that, well, should you sell when there is potential for Amazon to be worth negative 63? It's not going to be worth negative 63, I can tell you that. Usually you want to come up into points where the overall crashes have happened. So I would say maybe 2018, we go test that monthly 200 on Amazon. That's really what I would be paying attention to. So if I told you, hey, should I think about selling? Well, would you rather buy Amazon right now at 174 or possibly 56 in the next, year or two? I would automatically think to myself, hey, I'm probably going to wait and hold some cash until I'm able to invest at lower levels, because I'm seeing these signals, and if they're proven, then I will most likely get some cheap prices. But if I see those dailies rolling up again, then I can pay attention to that. If this isn't able to actually confirm, then I can say, oh, there might be one more push higher in this overall move. So paying attention to this monthly scale will be very important over the next 3 months. Should you get into Nvidia? And very well, Nvidia could go to $1,000 next week. I don't want to discard that either. I don't want to take that off the table, because GTC can be good news for it. I've done a little bit of research on it, and it seems like we see some big pops during that time. And we said on Friday, if they were going to manipulate the market on Friday, stop it from going down, what stocks are they going to use? They're going to use Nvidia. They're going to use AMD. They're going to use things like SMCI. They're going to use these types of things that people are euphoric in to distract them. So right now you're seeing this. Everyone is happy saying, oh, look at that. The whole market was down, but Nvidia was green on Friday. The problem is you're still getting some kind of retest of that 5-day moving average. You're seeing that drop off. And then at the same time, you got this crossing of the MACD. So any upward move here could be short-lived as the momentum shifts to the downside. So we'll have to pay attention to that. Maybe we get some kind of small divergence on the RSI, but not the MACD at the same time. That could lead to some kind of pullback, and we could see a stronger move in Nvidia later. But when you look at the overall market, if those monthlies start to cross, you have to say this is looking pretty toppy for Nvidia, and we could go to 1,000, but maybe that is the euphoric moment where people really hit the sell button and the Fed crashes the market next week on March 20th. We talked about how this could break down, and we were really talking about, and we're going to go into the shorter timeframes on Sunday. So do join us back if you want to subscribe for Sunday, because we are going to go into the shorter timeframes. We really caught the fact that they were going to hold Nvidia higher, maybe even keep it as to push higher in order to keep the prices a little bit better for the SPY and the Qs, because things got pretty selly pretty fast on Friday. So what do they want to use? They want to use these euphoric stocks to keep it up, to manipulate the market, because this is such a heavy weight. But in that live video, we talked about how an idea, what if this is just a left shoulder? If this is just a left shoulder, and then we come up to 1,000 or above 1,000 and then see that fade back down, we could create some kind of head up here, and then maybe we get a bounce at this level, people thinking, oh, this thing could go past 1,000 again, and then see that ripped away, getting some kind of left head and right shoulder. I really think that is possible. Even going into next week, I think we could see some kind of surge to give us that head, and then going past March 20th, maybe we actually see that fade back down. We have to pay attention to those rocks still in our stream. We have the Fed coming out and talking, and maybe they are even going to hint at when they are going to cut rates, and people could see that as positive news initially. But when they actually cut those rates, it usually means the banking system, something is underwater, and we are on the verge of some kind of big crisis. But on the daily scale here, the reason you do have some possibility for upside, look at the Bollinger Bands. You're back up towards this high. You have the potential. Even the Bollinger Bands are telling you, hey, this thing could go all the way up to 967 again. So we want to pay attention to those shorter time frames. Come back on Sunday so we can give that to you, and join the Patreon because you get the weekly expected moves for Nvidia on the Patreon, and they have been very, very, very useful. AMD, you can get those on Patreon as well, and this is the trade that we were mentioning on Patreon. That's right, on Patreon, I actually do give some trading setups, and we're going to talk about that possible setup that was here on Sunday. So come back, make sure you're subscribed for Sunday. The reason that I'm a little hesitant with AMD, sure, we could get another curl up. Maybe we get another point of divergence up in this area, but we do have this flatness of the MACD, and we see that downward divergence on the RSI here, which tells us AMD looking a little bit weaker than Nvidia. Nvidia still blowing off the top, right? But AMD kind of telling you, hey, the momentum has weakened in this stock. We notice we dropped below that 5-day moving average, and now we're riding it down. Still at the 20 at this point. We're landing right at the 20 at the end of the day on Friday. We do have good news that's possibly coming out for Nvidia starting March 18th. So we could see some kind of move higher in AMD, and we actually saw some signals for that to happen. We posted on Patreon. Sure, we said be a little bit careful because people are selling pretty hard, but if they're going to manipulate anything, it's going to be a stock like AMD to convince people that this isn't the top. Meta, we gave you that bottom side of the weekly expected move because it came outside of it on Monday. This is something we posted on Patreon as well. On Meta, we actually came out of that on Monday, and that's how powerful these weekly expected moves is. This white line here is the weekly expected move, the downside for Meta. We get below that for a moment, and we see that buying back up. So you do have that 68% chance to land in here by Friday every single week. And guess what? Meta actually did come outside of it early on. This is the warning we said. It's very early on in the week. Meta most likely will see some kind of bounce here. Boom, it gets that bounce, retests the 5-day, and gets rejected. So now we're coming down to lower levels, testing that 20 again. But notice we were able to close back within this weekly expected move. Now, as far as the next week's weekly expected move, we could see that actually be a little bit lower. So we could come to lower levels and set up this left head, and maybe we come and set up some right shoulder. But what if we get some kind of reaction up first and then come back down with some kind of double top? That would make some sense. If Nvidia gets some positivity, we can see positivity in other stocks. But if Nvidia and AMD are the only ones getting positivity holding up the market, and we see these sell off, that is very, very bad news. We could get some small bounces going into the end of the week, but it really is stating if we get down towards this monthly expected move, sure, we can get a bounce, but we might be starting some kind of negative trend on the daily scale very, very soon. This is why we have to be so cautious in the market. So we are going to talk about the 10-year for a little bit here and what TLT is doing. Bond traders are actually selling off, which just tells us that they are pushing these yields higher, telling us that the Fed might not be in control of inflation. And guess what? The Fed said themselves in their FOMC minutes, we do not feel we are in full control of inflation right now, so we have to pay attention to data. That is not what you want to hear from the person who's supposed to be fixing inflation. After all this time, they are not in control of inflation, which tells us two things. If they cut rates too early, they are in between a rock and a hard place. If they cut rates, well, then this drops, but inflation starts to tick back up very, very quickly as it is still at high levels. Now, if they decide to raise rates, then they are in another problem, because if you raise these rates even further, and the bond market's actually doing that for you right now, we can see a bank failure where they are forced to cut those rates, and that is usually the worst case scenario, and that's where you see a big crash because a bunch of banks start to fail. They start to go underwater, people start to default, we get delinquency. It is a mess. So do you want to invest in a time where it is a mess? No, you want that mess to most likely play out, see that correction, and then curl back up. You want that mess to play out, see that crash, and buy stuff for pennies. Pennies, people. You will be able to buy this stuff. We might even see Bitcoin go down as well. So we have to pay attention to these types of things. This is the most dangerous thing in the market right now. These yields going up back towards our point of 4.362, which we pretty much tagged, we could create that divergence by going higher. Is that going to be ripped away with some kind of sudden move by the Fed needing to cut those rates because a bunch of banks are going underwater? Well, I can tell you when those banks fail, we go through some kind of banking crisis, we most likely will be heading into some kind of recession. And this is what's doing that. The TLT is really showing them, hey, the Fed, we're forcing your hand. You have to do something soon. And the Fed is paying attention to this going on into Wednesday. Don't think they're not. If this continues to head lower, we actually could see some kind of divergence on TLT, which could hint to us the momentum in TLT is dying. The bond traders could be telling us, yes, this is as high. We need to push those rates and then see that turn around. And we could see TLT explode out of this wedging at this point and head to higher levels. So we see all the liquidity being grabbed in this area here, just trying to grab it all along this upward move. And then we could actually see a big reaction here with some kind of divergence down here. So let's pay attention to TLT. If that's able to rip to the upside and start to break through some levels, we could be seeing the Fed actually cutting rates sooner than we think because of some kind of crisis. So is this a good time to invest? I can tell you for myself, at least in my opinion, I would say no. I would say no, but it doesn't mean that for the short term, we can't trade this thing back and forth. We've been trading like water and doing a pretty good job. Notice we're getting all of these moves above the 20 or the 200 over and over and over again, but we keep getting rejected every time. Once we are not rejected above the 200 and we start to see that next confirming bar. So you want one closing bar, and then if that confirms the next day, we really could see this start to spike up. The important thing here is even though we're seeing this break down lower and lower, we're getting that 50 closer and closer to the 200. You guys know this is a huge crash signal when the 50 crosses the 200. The last time that the 50 crossed the 200, we actually were about to cross, we faded back down. That's what we were talking about back in October. And we saw a huge bull run that we were able to catch with some divergences on Apple. So congratulations if you were subscribed and liked that info. But I'll just show you guys the last time we got into a positive trend. The last time the 50 actually crossed the 200 here was November 21st. Okay, so let's go look at where November 21st was on the SPY. Let's go look where that exactly was. November 21st, 2021. Oh, we have to go back even further. November 21st, 2021. What happened after November 21st, 2021? We saw one more push higher, and then we saw that bear market. Okay, a lot of people called this a bear market. I really think it was just a correction at this point because we ended up hitting a new all-time high. But we can notice that we saw a bunch of volatility for a very, very long time, for almost a year and a half, 2 years. So we have to pay attention to these signals at this moment because we're seeing a lot of divergences up here of the momentum dying, and we're seeing volatility about to maybe cross and give us that crash signal. So be aware and be cautious with those stocks, and let's keep trading like water out there. The main question that we were trying to get at was, should I sell at this point? And the overall way I would answer that is, well, would you invest at this point? If you wouldn't invest at this point, then why would you not sell at this point? That's overall what I'm thinking in my mind. If I'm not willing to buy, then I should most likely sell. It's not saying that we can't make a move higher, so we're still going to pay attention to the overall charts. We could be seeing a big move higher with Nvidia going on into next week, but is TLT going to force the Fed's hand next week? That is what we are going to be talking about on Sunday. That's what we're going to be talking about live throughout the week. So come back and join us for that live video. Go down below if you need some kind of course this weekend, or if you want to join that Patreon. If you're a good trader and you just need some extra things, some more tools to help you be successful, that's what I'm here for. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video, and I hope you have a great, great weekend. I wish you all the luck in the world trading next week, but come back on Sunday, have a good weekend, and have a good day. Peace.